Greetings once again from Cooperstown, New York, site of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. Very glad that you could join us for another edition of Virtual Voices of the Game. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruce Marcus and I work in the education department, but the most important part of the program today is our guest. He's a former Major League standout, played 16 years in the big leagues, hit 344 home runs, made 3 all-star teams during the course of his career, also received MVP consideration on 3 occasions. We welcome to the program Curtis Granderson. Curtis, thanks for being with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's an absolute thrill to have you on the program. I should mention that I'm a Yankee fan. I think a lot of people know that. And although I'm a baseball fan in general, it's always fun to have a former Yankee on. But of course, you played for a number of other teams, the Tigers and the Mets among them. And we're glad to have you on to talk about a number of different topics. Before we get started, Curtis, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. Just want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor. It's the Ford Motor Company. They make programs like these Virtual Voices of the Game programs with Curtis Granderson possible. So we're very grateful to the Ford Motor Company for their support. Curtis, you retired, well, not that long ago after the 2019 season. We often hear about how difficult it is for retired players, to make this transition to life after baseball. How has it been for you so far?
One of the things that I was looking forward to with retirement was enjoying a Chicago summer. That's home for me. That's where I live in the off season. My family's still in the area, and I hadn't spent an entire summer in Chicago since the year 2000. So now it's 2020, I'm retired, I'm ready to take in the sun, take in the sights, do all the great things that I've missed out on. And then COVID hits. So it was an interesting transition, but I did get the weather. I didn't have the snow like I have right now. I did get to go outside and see the leaves on the trees versus the brown, branches and the dirt and the mud from the snow and all that stuff. So far, everything has been great. And as much as I've tried to lay low and be quote unquote retired, I've always enjoyed being busy and have stayed busy. And hopefully we'll plan to continue to keep busy. So far, everything is rolling really well for me.
Had you planned a lot of traveling, an active schedule last year, or were you planning just to stay in Chicago the entire year?
Yeah, anyone that knows me and for everyone that's watching out here, I have 2 big passions outside of course, sports and a bunch of other different things, but it's food and travel. So I was ready to roll and get going, get those frequent flyer miles and those points and go to places that I typically didn't get a chance to again over the summer. For example, playing in New York, like you mentioned, everyone always asks me, have I been to the Hamptons? And I never could go because I had games, I had work. I never got an opportunity to do things like that. So there were a few things on my list that I wanted to check off. And contractually, I wasn't allowed to ski or snowboard. So I was hoping to pick that one up also. So I haven't done it yet. So if anyone has any tips, please let me know. Should I ski first? Should I snowboard first? And how do I go about doing it so I don't hurt myself?
Yeah, very good. Well, here in upstate New York, skiing is a major pastime. One of the things that you have kept busy with is the Players Alliance. Tell us a little bit about the organization. I'm sure we have some people that they've heard of it, but maybe don't know all that much about it. You're the president. What's the organization's mission? What's your role specifically as the president?
The Players Alliance started this past summer. Again, nobody had been discussing this idea collectively at the way that we've done it. The events that happened over this past summer with George Floyd being the big one that everybody knows about and had heard about, brought together a lot of current and former Black baseball players. Started with a group chat with Dee Gordon, Edwin Jackson, and Cameron Maben, saying we got to do more than just post something on social. We want to start to see some changes, not only in the game, but in the communities where we live and play and call home. And that's where the Players Alliance started from this past summer. And since then, again, even with COVID, we've still been able to do a lot of great things. We've created a mentorship program where we've been able to communicate with a lot of players from as young as 8 years old, all the way up to a bunch of retired players such as Dimitri Young, who was a guy that took me underneath his wings when I was making my debut to the big leagues. And we've done Jackie Robinson Scholars. We just finished a big cross-country tour where we handed out COVID products, food, and a lot of boys and girls their first ever baseball bats and baseball gloves. So these are just some of the things that we've been doing with the Players Alliance. And now that we're here in 2021, we've started our Power Up Labs with partnership with Microsoft. We've gone to a lot of communities and provided laptops, devices, things for people to be able to connect and stay, whether it's school, whether it's, with the world, all the different things that we're doing right now that were slightly exposed over this past year with COVID. We saw the disparities, especially in communities of color, that people didn't have some of these devices to stay connected. So we've been really excited to be able to do just a few of these things in such a short amount of time. And that's the Players Alliance. You can check us out on social and also our website as well.
What is the website, Curtis?
Theplayersalliance.com.
Theplayersalliance.com. In getting feedback from some of the African-American kids that you, Gordon, Maven, Jackson have been encountering over the past year, what's the feedback that you get? Do they like baseball? Do they want to learn more about it? You sometimes hear this criticism that, baseball is not hip enough, not fast enough, that it's losing out to other sports like football, like the NBA. What's the feedback that you and the other leaders of the organization, what are you hearing from these kids?
There's a mix, and surprisingly, we have a lot of very young kids that are starting to play the game between the ages of about 4 and 12. Boys and girls from all over the country getting introduced to the game, starting with T-ball and Little League and travel ball and all those different great options. But then once we get to 13, that's where the big, drop off comes in for a number of different reasons. The field gets bigger, other sports start to become in the forefront. We have access to social media, and we can see the excitement that some of the other sports have done an amazing job of doing, such as the NBA, such as soccer, such as football, in terms of highlighting their players. So players are getting a chance to connect and say, wow, that guy listens to the same music I do, or I wear the same number he does, or he wears the same hat that I do. It's those little connections like that that can help keep people in the game. It was something that did it for me. When I was watching King Griffey Jr. go out there and swing his black baseball bat, that's the reason why I started swinging a black baseball bat. There was no other reason to it. The fact that I saw King Griffey Jr. do it, and that's why I did it. And I also got a chance to see a lot of the Negro League greats wear their pants up high. And that's why I ended up wearing my pants high throughout the course of my career. But I saw it, I wanted to be like them, and that's what kept me in it. And I think that's one of the things that we have to continue to do a better job of in this game, to make sure not only for the black kids and the brown kids, but all kids continue to say, this is fun. I want to continue to keep doing this.
That's interesting. I'd never thought of 13 as that kind of a cutoff point. So you have kids who think maybe they can't really play the game at a more advanced level. Do you look at it as your mission? Okay, even though you're maybe not talented enough to pursue a college or minor league or major league career, but hey, it's still a great game. I mean, I wasn't much of an athlete at all. I knew well before 13 I wasn't going anywhere as a ball player, but I still love the game. What is it that you and these other guys can do to make the kids understand, hey, it's still a great game. You can be a fan, you can research it, you can be a historian. What do you do to kind of bridge that gap?
I kind of talk about a mix of not only the playing side, because obviously there's the glam of that, getting a chance to win and being celebrated and having that notoriety. But there's so many options around the game, from just a fan standpoint, 30 ballparks and 30 amazing places, getting a chance to travel and see those, getting a chance to potentially work in this game. There's so many different things that happen that make a game work, from the scoreboard to the analytics to trades to running the teams to all these great things. And I remember when I was getting a chance to speak to a school, and everyone always asked, how much money do you make? And I never shy away from answering that question, because that might be the motivation to get you into it. But the one thing that I always drove home, and this was when the Wilpons were with me when I was with the Mets, they actually came to the school visit. I said, well, I make this much money, but the Wilpons, Freddie and Jeff Wilpon, they own the team. So imagine how much money they make. And all the kids went, wow, so I can own a baseball team. I can work in the front office of a baseball team. And a lot of people have never even thought of that as a possible idea. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do with our access program with the Players Alliance, is connect some of these kids with front office individuals with Major League Baseball, to realize there's jobs in scouting and umpiring and coaching and traveling, all these great opportunities besides just playing the game and hopefully making it to the major leagues.
Well, certainly money is a motivating factor. Do you also try to tell the kids that it can't be the only factor? There's got to be something beyond that.
Absolutely. And there's a number of things that being a student athlete can help you out with. We've seen statistically that those that are student athletes tend to get better grades, tend to stay out of trouble more for a number of reasons. And I can just point to myself. I knew if I got in trouble, I wasn't going to get a chance to play. I knew if I didn't do the grades that I needed to, I wasn't going to get a chance to play. And that's where I wanted to be. So it kind of goes hand in hand. If I love the sport and I want to be out there, well, I got to make sure I'm doing what I need to in the classroom. And if I'm struggling, I got to get help. Just like if I'm struggling on hitting a curveball, I got to go to my coaches and get some help. I also got to go to my teammates, just like I go to my classmates. Maybe you're a better English student than I am, or maybe I'm a better math student than you are, but collectively we can continue to help each other out. So it goes hand in hand, in my opinion, and that's why we continue to keep driving home the importance of the education, the baseball side of it, and just being around it and how many doors it can open up for you.
Oh, it's a terrific message. We're coming to the end of Black History Month. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Curtis, about some of the Black pioneers in baseball who came before you. You talked about the Negro League's influence, and that's something you've mentioned in past interviews as well. Were there one or two players, either from the Negro Leagues or major league players, particularly important to you that you wanted to emulate? Maybe you didn't see them play, but you read about them, you heard other people talk about them. Any one or two Black pioneers that really hit home with you?
Cool Papa Bell was probably the one that I heard stories about, and I was like, I wish I could have seen some of those things. The stories about him being so fast he could turn the lights off and be in the bed before the room gets dark. The fact that Jesse Owens, who was an Olympic gold medal sprinter champion at that time, didn't want to race against Cool Papa Bell because he was afraid he was going to lose to him. Like, who is this guy? I want to see how fast this guy is. And also, he scored from first on a bunt, I think, 2 different times in his career. So I wanted to see that speed in person, because you always hear these stories and people add to it, but those stories tend to continue to stay consistent, everybody that I've heard them from. So that would have been a very unique one to get a chance to watch live and in person.
He was, of course, a center fielder. Was that a motivating factor for you to gravitate to center field?
Interestingly enough, I ended up in center field because I was struggling in the infield. So in high school, I was playing shortstop. And as a lot of our viewers out there know, you tend to put the most athletic person at shortstop early in their career. So that's where I started at. But then I was always afraid the ball was going to bounce and hit me in the face. So I fielded everything off to the side. And of course, I started making some errors. I think I had a game with 4 or 5 errors at shortstop. And my coach, who I still love to this day, Coach Anderson, said, that's it, you're going to the outfield. And I did that as a sophomore in high school, bouncing back and forth between right field and center field. And that's where I've stayed ever since.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. You hear announcers like Jim Cott, the retired Tony Kubek, and they often talk about making that transition, whether it's in the minor leagues or the major leagues. And they say it's so much easier to go from the infield to the outfield than from the outfield to the infield. If you can play shortstop, there's a pretty good chance you can find some other position on the field that's a comfort for you. And that obviously worked out in your perspective.
And also accepting that. There's a lot of times I hear from young kids go, I don't want to play the outfield. I don't want to play right field. That tends to be the negative stigma position. And then I just point to all the great right fielders that have played this game: Vlad Guerrero, Ichiro Suzuki. You know, there's so many guys that have gone on to have amazing careers playing in right field, because there's 9 positions out there. You just want to be in one of them so you get a chance to be on the field. And I would have loved to have played a bunch of other positions. They never let me pitch, which I was hoping I'd get a chance to do. And my dad would never let me play catcher. But these are all great opportunities for you to get a chance to be on the field, to impact the game, especially in the outfield. I see a lot of kids go, oh, I don't want to go to the outfield. But you can't rob a home run in the infield. So those are some great highlights that you typically get a chance to be in the top 10 each day and at the end of the week. So I always try to promote that anywhere you get a chance to be on the field is a great place.
We talk about some of these great Negro Leagues players, Black History Month, and it relates to a terrific donation that you have made to the Hall of Fame. Here we have a pair of spikes that you yourself donated. You used these, I believe it was Jackie Robinson Day back in 2018. They're very distinctive in a lot of ways, but I want you to describe, if you would, exactly where these spikes came from and how it came to be that you wore them.
So Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th, every year, outside of last year with everything that happened with COVID, is an amazing day. It recognizes Jackie breaking the color barrier, giving not only myself, but all the players of color an opportunity to play in Major League Baseball. And because of him, I had a chance to have teammates from all over the world. And it's great to acknowledge Jackie because he's done so many great things, both for the game and just for the civil rights movement. But I also wanted to make sure that people didn't forget about Larry Doby, who broke the color barrier in the American League, making his debut with the Cleveland Indians. And it popped in my head getting a chance to play at then, I think it might have been Jacobs Field or it changed to Progressive Field. And I saw Doby's name up in the rafters and I kept thinking like, who's Doby? And then I had to start to do some research into myself. I go, wow, no one talks about this guy. This guy was the first guy to do it on the American League. Why doesn't he get some of the claim and the credit as well? So that year, getting a chance to customize my cleats for Jackie Robinson Day, I said, you know what? I want to pay homage to both of these guys because I broke in the American League. If it wasn't for Larry Doby, who knows? I may not have got a chance to play with the Detroit Tigers to start my career. So I wanted to say thank you to him and also thank you to Jackie. And a great place that I wanted to send it was to you guys at the Hall of Fame. So hopefully it could be displayed. And you guys have done an amazing job of just continuing to recognize it. The people that have sent me photos and posted it on social, which I didn't think it was going to get that much traction, but it's amazing to see.
So we see the left shoe is Jackie. The right shoe has Larry Doby's last name. Who did all this artwork for you?
So this was, wow, why am I drawing a blank on the name? Oh gosh, this is going to kill me. Oh man. It's a company that I use here in Chicago, but man, why am I drawing a blank on the name?
Well, that's okay.
But there's a new, yeah.
Did you sign we see what appears to be signatures toward the front. Is that your signature?
Yeah, that's my signature on there. I just wanted to make sure that that was there. So if anybody wanted to go ahead and take these and show that I did it. And that's Larry Doby right there on that cleat there. And I actually think the image on these particular cleats came from New Balance, to be honest with you. Okay. So it's a New Balance cleat. I think they imposed the images on this particular cleat, but I've done some custom cleats before with, and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. You guys got me on the spot, but I'll make sure I go ahead and tag them after this.
Not a problem. We'll figure that out at some point. So we have Doby on the right shoe here, and then we have the image of Jackie Robinson on the left shoe. You see the portrait, then a couple of in-action shots. Did you wear the spikes for just the one game, or did you keep wearing them a little after that?
No, just that one day. And I wanted to make sure, again, all the focus was on that day. Then we had them authenticated. You saw the little hologram on the heel of the shoe, signed them up, and then we made sure we got those out to the Hall of Fame so you guys can put them on display. So for all the viewers that were coming out in the audience to get a chance to see the great museum, getting a chance to see those on display was great.
You know, we always ask the players this question, but I don't think it's a cliche because everybody has a different answer. What is it like to know that one of your personal items, your spikes from Jackie Robinson Day, are in this museum, permanent part of baseball history? When you think about that, what comes to mind?
Watching and hearing about the Hall of Fame, you hope to see it firsthand. You hope to get a chance to be immortalized with all those greats in there, from just an acknowledgement, from being voted into the Hall of Fame, or just being a part of it. And having seen it in 2002 when I played in the New York Penn League with the Oneonta Tigers, I got a chance to go in there and I saw that there were all these different artifacts besides just the plaques of the players who have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it's just great to see jerseys and artifacts and bats and gloves and balls. And even Ozzie Smith that year was inducted, and he showed how he made his glove that he started out playing with a paper bag. And that's in there. And it's amazing to have these cleats alongside with an amazing shortstop like Ozzie Smith and all the other players that have got inducted into the Hall of Fame. To again, just acknowledge these two great individuals that have done amazing things for the sport, that have given me an opportunity to get a chance to play.
You know, you mentioned Oneonta, and I want to bring this up because we actually had a question sent in by a fan, Tom. And Tom asked about your time in Oneonta. Oneonta's had a proud minor league tradition, dates back to the 1960s. At one point, they were a Red Sox affiliate, then for a long time became a Yankee affiliate, then, of course, a Tiger affiliate. And that's when you were with the franchise. Tell us a little bit, any memories that really come to mind about that summer in Oneonta?
So I get drafted by the Detroit Tigers that summer, and they said, you're going to go to Oneonta, New York. I had never heard of Oneonta, and they said, it's in beautiful upstate New York. You're going to love it. So I'm coming from Chicago, big city, skyscrapers, all this great stuff. And I fly in, actually make my debut in Williamsport against the Crosscutters. And then we take the bus across over to Oneonta, New York, where I get a chance to stay at, I think it's SUNY University in Oneonta. We're staying in the dorms there. And there were a lot of eye-opening moments getting a chance to play on that team. The first and foremost was when I joined that team. I said, this is the most amount of Black players I've ever played with. And I'm walking on the bus. I'm like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? And then everyone starts speaking Spanish to me. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it is. And I just didn't put two and two together that now I'm about to be on a team that's just so mixed and diverse. I think at that point I had 5 Black players. I had about 6 or 7 Dominican players, 3 Venezuelan players, and a lot of white players on the team, and a couple Mexican players. And that was the most diverse team I had ever played on at the course of my career. So it was exciting to get there. And our team was good. We made it to the championship. We unfortunately lost to the Staten Island Yankees in a best-of-3 game series, but it was a ton of fun. Got a chance to play against a bunch of great guys. Hanley Ramirez, Brandon League were a couple guys that were in that league at the same time. And it was a ton of fun out there, just being there and realizing I'm in minor league baseball, the long bus rides, the big stadiums, the small stadiums, the old stadiums, the historic stadiums. And I think that was one of the things that they would always highlight about Oneonta Stadium is Babe Ruth hitting these cages that you're hitting in. I was like, that's great, but we could still fix the nets here. Like, we don't have to keep it the same nets with the holes in it that Babe hit on back, 100 years ago. Like, let's plug those holes up a little bit. But it was a ton of fun out there. And Sam Nader, who just recently passed as the owner of that team, got a chance to meet him and his family out there and see him on the field, which was great. That interaction with owner and player, and a ton of fun just playing with the Oneonta Tigers.
Yeah, Sam passed away about 10 days ago. He's 101 years of age, longtime owner and operator of the franchise. His son, John, was his general manager for many years. John still lives and works in the area, but Sam, absolutely beloved, not only in baseball, but also in the Oneonta area. The ballpark, Damaski Field, not exactly a hitter's paradise, cavernous, especially for a young player getting used to pro ball for the first time.
That place was huge, and they said they had the dimensions up, but they had to be wrong. That place was enormous. The gaps were big, the line were big, the outfield was kind of rolling a little bit. I remember I strained a hamstring like 2 weeks into playing there, but luckily it wasn't terrible. But came back and was able to hit, and I think it actually helped me out throughout the course of my career because I couldn't hit the ball out of the ballpark there, so I had to just go ahead and try to drive it to those gaps, and that's where those extra base hits, which started to lead to me getting those triples, started to come from. So thanks in part to Oneonta Stadium, one of the biggest that I got a chance to play in.
Who was your manager that year?
Randy Reddy was my manager there. Yeah. So he came over there, and I think he was just starting out managing. So he joined the team. I had Bill Mambo Cat as the pitching coach, and Barbaro Garbe was our hitting coach. So great group of guys. And Barbara was actually the guy who really helped me out starting out with my swing and understanding things I needed to do to get it going. And actually, I think batted second in terms of batting average in that league there, thanks in parts to him. So a ton of great guys to get introduced to the game.
Yeah, Garbe had been a refugee from Cuba in the early 1980s. Sparky Anderson once compared him to Roberto Clemente. It didn't quite work out that way, but he was a very decent major league player and obviously an influence on you.
It definitely was. And he's the one that really showed the importance of batting off of a tee. And at that point in my career, I didn't really like hitting off the tee. And he showed me, okay, we can push it here, work on hitting the ball to the pull side the other way, and making sure we stay to and through the baseball there. And it translated to a lot of success, especially that season and throughout the rest of my career.
Of course, you spent your early career with the Tigers. You then came over to the Yankees, became a favorite of mine, a favorite of many Yankee fans, part of some really good teams. And I have to ask you about playing with this gentleman, elected to the Hall of Fame last year, Derek Jeter. What was he like as a teammate in terms both of the clubhouse and also on the field? Tell us about Derek.
One thing that stood out to me about Derek was the fact that throughout the course of his career, which was a very long career, and he had so many teammates, if you really think about it, from guys that were there for just one day to guys that had long careers. And every player that I saw him interact with, he treated them like they were the same. He made sure to introduce himself. He made sure that they felt comfortable. They can go talk to him. And if you really step back and think about that, it can be really challenging for somebody in his position who has the spotlight on him. The world knows him, and he doesn't know if you're going to be on the team for a week or for 10 years. So I could maybe pull back and not take the time to get to know you because you might not be here anyways. But that was one of the things that really stood out for me in terms of just how he interacted with guys and made it a point just to go out there and make guys feel comfortable. And it was an honor and a privilege to get a chance to play with him, see him go about his business. And another exciting thing, getting a chance to play against him and then with him. Yeah. At first, I thought he was just this magician and he was just naturally talented. But being there with him and seeing him work, you realize that the talent and the skill comes from all the hard work and dedication that he does when people aren't watching. And that was really cool to see that you just can't be good. You have to work at being good. And he definitely was a true example of it.
When you first joined the Yankees, did you go up to him or did he go up to you?
Wow, I was in shock. So I think he came up to me. Yeah. I met him in spring training that year. So that would have been 2010. I got traded that offseason. I got a chance to meet CC. Who else did I meet that year? CC, I think, Teixeira and A-Rod that year. And then I met Jeter in spring training. And then everything continued to go. And the first thing he said, he goes, "Hey, let me know if you want to come over to the house, invite you over." And I was like, Derek's going to invite me to his house. Now, keep in mind, I'm his teammate now. I shouldn't be like starstruck. I got to go ahead and try to, be calm with all this. I'm like, he's about to invite me to his house. So I was super excited about that.
That's nice. Made you feel welcome right from the get-go. We have a few minutes left with Curtis Granderson, and the rest of the way, I want to take questions from our audience members. First one is from Bruce Jankowitz, a two-parter. Which communities, Curtis, has the Players Alliance been most active in, and what type of outreach do you feel is most effective?
So far, it's been a mix. We started out with this Players Alliance Pull-Up Neighbor Tour, which started in December and finished up in January. It was a 33-city tour that started in Brooklyn and the Bronx and was going to finish up in California. But at the time, the numbers were so high in that state in terms of COVID, we had to go ahead and pause for safety concerns. But we went from New York to the East Coast, down south to Florida, Mississippi, Texas, and we continued to head west and finished up in Nevada and Arizona. So we've been stretching out a lot and we'll continue to keep doing so. And I think the biggest thing is getting a chance to have people see you. Right now, we have to do a lot of it virtually, but a lot of people are excited when they go, "Wow, you're just like me. You're not much different. You come from a very similar background to me." And I think that can be very motivating to a lot of individuals.
Question from David Rosen, wanting to know if you've spent any time with, today's player. Of course, you're not that far removed from being one of today's players. You only retired a couple of years ago. But David goes on to say that you're obviously somebody who respects the game. You know how to give back. You know how to treat the fans. Is that the kind of a message that you try to get across to today's player?
Throughout the course of the conversation, there's a bunch of different topics that will come up. One, giving back to the community. There's so many players that say, "Well, I want to start my foundation. What are some recommendations?" And I always point them in the direction of think what's passionate for you. For me, it was education and nutrition and baseball and being active. That's how I started the Grandkids Foundation. But for you, it could be the troops. It could be cancer. It could be autism. Whatever is important to you, then you'll want to go ahead and fully embrace into it. In terms of autographs and interacting with the fans, I always remember hearing that some of these people that are coming out to watch you play, practice, and train, this might be the first and only time they get a chance to see you. So how do you want them to remember you as? And as much as I would love to sign autographs for all 50,000 fans that are in the stadium, of course I can't do so, but I try my best to be open and respectful to them because they've come out and put their dollars into tickets to come out and see you practice and play. So I try my best to return.
It's a difficult balancing act. There's only so many hours in the day. You have to get ready for the game, but at the same time, you want to try to be as gracious to the fans as you can. It's impossible to sign every autograph, but you just have to try to balance against everything else in terms of demands. We have a comment from Perry Barber. I don't know if you know Perry. She's an umpire who has worked spring training for a number of years. She doesn't really have a question, but just wants to applaud the fact that you're including not only boys, but girls in the outreach for the Players Alliance.
And that's great. And thank you, Perry, for what you're doing. And it's one of the things I've been talking about a lot recently in comparison to the Negro Leagues. So the Negro Leagues did not only great things for getting Black players an opportunity to play, but it allowed Latino players to play and females to play. They had 3 females that played in the Negro Leagues. They had a female owner, and this was back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. Now let's fast forward to 2020 when we get our first female coach on the field with the San Francisco Giants, which is a great moment. But when you think about it and go, wow, it's taken us that long to be able to do so. And in my career, I've had 1 female coach from T-ball all the way up until the time I retired. And she was my first ever baseball coach when I was 6 years old. So throughout my 30-year life of playing baseball, I only had 1 female coach. And we have to make sure we start to see some improvements in that. From playing to umpiring to scouting to front office to ownership to being on the field, there's no reason why we should still be this far behind.
You're referring, of course, to Alyssa Nacken, the San Francisco Giants coach, who was actually our guest a few months ago, was terrific as well. We'll take one more question from the audience. Harold Rivera wants to know, when you were growing up, what were your hobbies, and did they include collecting baseball cards?
They did include collecting baseball cards. I had a ton of them: Topps, Donruss, Upper Deck, Lear, and tried to get as many as I could. One of the big ones, again, Kingerfree Jr. was a big one. And David Justice, I was a huge fan of. I had probably the most amount of cards were David Justice cards. So that was one that I collected a ton of. In terms of other hobbies, I loved bowling. I actually would have continued to keep bowling, but we didn't have a male bowling team at my high school at the time. We only had a female bowling team. So I had to stop once I got to high school. I played basketball, I ran track. Love just being with my friends in the community, creating games, thinking of different things to do. I actually never really traded baseball cards because I didn't want to lose any of the ones I had. So I would always see the ones my friends had and they would see the ones I had, but I never actually swapped, like, let me get this one for that one. So I still have them. They're at my parents' house. And from time to time, when I go home, I take a look at them, and it's just great to see some of the ones that I have.
Well, whenever you come back to Cooperstown next, you'll have to check out our new exhibit, Shoebox Treasures, which is all about baseball cards. We've got 200,000 cards in the collection here, so that would certainly be of interest. Final question, Curtis. Where would you like your career to go next? You're obviously a highly intelligent guy, very positive, a lot of energy. It seems like you could do just about anything. You want to be a manager? You want to work in the front office? Do you want to do some broadcasting, something else?
Well, managing is I've had a ton of respect for all the managers I've ever had, all the coaches I've ever had, but it hasn't been the thing that's been drawing me towards it. But I do want to stay around the game, and I feel like there's going to be that coaching, instructing side to me, whether it's in a camp setting, whether it's a mentor setting. I have a lot of calls and text messages with a lot of different guys, from adults to coaches to active players and young players, just looking for different things for how to get their mind right when they're playing on the field, nutrition, strength training, different things. So I like the fact that I can add and be of assistance to those individuals that are trying to improve their game. Got a chance to do a little broadcasting, which has been a lot of fun. TBS has given me a great opportunity to be on there with the cast with Ernie Johnson and Pedro Martinez and Jimmy Rollins. So excited to continue to do some great things with them. And who knows after that side of it, but definitely will continue to stay involved in the game, because I see there's so much potential for where this game could go to and where I want to see it ultimately get to. Having traveled around the world, introducing the game to people from all over and letting people realize that you don't have to be the tallest, you don't have to be the fastest, you don't have to be the strongest. Just a little bit of work, dedication, fun, and you can have a ton of success and also enjoy watching and being a part of this great game.
If you do decide to do more broadcasting down the line, and I hope you do, because I think you'd be great at it, what do you like better? Do you like being in a studio better, or do you like being actually at the game, doing either play-by-play or color?
It's interesting. The studio is really cool because all I got to do is talk about what's happened. Oh, he hit a home run. Oh, he made a great play. And then I kind of break it down a little bit for you. And it's amazing, too, that the audience is listening and understanding and also learning as they're hearing from you. So it's been fun to do that. In terms of the in-game doing it, I've only been interviewed during in-games. I haven't actually done an in-game yet. So if that opportunity presents itself, it'll be interesting to see. I am a little worried though, if we have a rain delay or a very long game or an extra inning game, what will I decide to talk about when it's the 10th or the 15th inning and so-and-so's up for his 8th time of the game and either has no hits or has a ton of hits. I only can say it's so-and-so's birthday so many times. So there'll be a learning curve for me for sure when I finally get an opportunity to do that.
Well, you know a lot about the history of the game. I think you can fill the time very well.
I'll try my best to. And hopefully, whoever I'm alongside with will definitely be a good quarterback and can definitely help drive it. And I just help assist and we make this whole thing go.
Curtis, we really appreciate the time. It's been great. Continued success with the Players Alliance, working as their president. Hopefully you'll be able to do more face-to-face with the kids this year as we perhaps get to a better stage in terms of the virus. But thanks for being part of our programming here at the Hall of Fame, and we hope to see you in Cooperstown in the near future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody that's watching out there. And hopefully, like you said, everything continues to start to open up here soon so we can start doing a lot more interacting, including getting out to the hall.
Thanks again to Curtis Granderson. Also, thanks to the Ford Motor Company for being our sponsor, making these programs possible. Have a great day, everybody.